Library of Heaven's Path. Chapter 29. You must be sick. Shen Bai Ru, who is the compendium pavilion as well, hears the continuous sounds of footsteps and flipping of books. Initially, she didn't think much into, but as time passed, she started to feel that something is amiss with the situation. One would need to read a book slowly to comprehend its contents. How can it be possible for anyone to flip through it so quickly? Bewildered, she couldn't resist walking over to take a look. After which, she sees Zhang Xuan flipping the books from the first shelf. It is very apparent to see that he isn't reading through the contents of the books, but more like looking for something. Is this the reason why Elder Mo denied him entry? After watching for a moment, she realizes that the other party doesn't have the intention to stop. Gedeng, Shen Bai Ru's heart beats. Previously, the reason why she couldn't resist speaking out to help him upon seeing the difference between the current him and his previous self is because she wants him to work hard so as to be freed from his current awkward position. However, she would have never imagined that this fellow isn't here to study but to look for something. This is the Compendium Pavilion. Every day, there are innumerable teachers who come in, so it is impossible for there to be anything valuable hidden here. Flipping through these books so casually is almost a blasphemy to this Compendium Pavilion. How repulsive. Perhaps. He knew that I would be coming to the Compendium Pavilion today, so he intentionally waited outside then came in to make such a ruckus to capture my attention. This would only provoke my ire. The image of the young man in Shen Bai Ru's heart falls to the pits. Due to her beauty, many people have tried many ways to get on her good side, as well as to attract her attention. In her opinion, Zhang Xuan isn't even trying to look through the books. Rather, he is intentionally making those noises to change her opinion of him. In reality, she hates it when people make up this kind of show. After looking at her a moment longer, she ascertains her opinion. If he is truly here to browse through the books, how could he possibly be reading books of all genres? Furthermore, to be flipping through them at such rapid speed, he is probably unable to even ascertain the name of the manual, needless to say, its contents. With a darkened expression on her beautiful face, she walks over to Zhang Xuan. Teacher Zhang, what are you doing? Reading books. Zhang Xuan doesn't realize that his actions have already been labeled as putting up a show, and replies casually without raising his head. Reading books. Shen Bai Ru harumphs coldly. Coldness emanates from her jade-like face as she says, if you think that your actions are cool and would attract my attention, please retract those immature thoughts of yours. I, Shen Bai Ru, do not fall for such petty tricks. Furthermore, your actions will only incur my irritation. Oh, alright. Zhang Xuan continues flipping through his books. He intends to imprint all of the manuals in the Compendium Pavilion onto the Library of Heaven's Path by today, and time is a little tight for him, so he doesn't have the effort to spare to be chatting with others. Besides, in his opinion, the other party is simply being too self-important. What business does she have to do with what he is doing? You might be truly pretty, but it isn't like I have yet to meet a beautiful woman like you. In the previous world, in the era of information, there are all kinds of beauties stored in the hard disk. Furthermore, they are skilled in blowing, pulling, playing and singing. A cold beauty like you does not hold much interest to me. I don't have the energy to think of ways to attract your attention. Since you understand it, please leave this compendium library. Stop wasting your effort here. Seeing how the young man's head remains lowered, still putting on a show, Shen Bai Ru turns and gestures him to leave. Dang 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 dang. The sound of the footsteps of the young man leaving. This is more like it. Seeing how he gives up readily, Shen Bai Ru nods her head in satisfaction. Just as she is about to continue to read her book, she hears the sound of the flipping of books echoing in the library once again. Hualala, hualalala. Turning her head to take a look, she realizes that the young man had no intention to leave. You. Shen Bai Ru almost explodes from anger. Are you done yet? I have already said that doing this will just incur my irritation, yet you still persist in doing so. Is there a point to it? At this point, her slim figure straightens and she walks up to Zhang Xuan once again, and disgust could be clearly seen in her pitch-black pupils. Did you not hear my words? The more you behave like this, the more disgusted I would be with you. You won't earn my fancy like this. Are you sick? Seeing the other party coming over to bother him again, Zhang Xuan is a little irritated. He stops in his actions and says, "You read your own stuff while I'll read my own. If you are really bored, you can squat by a corner and draw circles. Don't bother me here. It is not like I have never met a beautiful lady in my life before, why are you acting so haughtily?" You. She didn't expect the young man to speak like this. Shen Bai Ru feels her sight blurring and she almost dies from the overwhelming rage welling in her. Who is she? Haotian Academy's #1 beauty. Blessed with great talent and looks, almost all of the teachers and students in the academy regard her as a goddess. Before her, they would act respectfully, not daring to even speak loudly for fear of offending her. Yet, you dare to say, "I am sick." Even asking me to squat at a corner to draw circles. I am a lady, all right. Draw circles, draw your mum's fat head. Shen Bai Ru feels a heavy and stuffy sensation on her chest that she is unable to relieve. Hualala, hualalala. Her face flushes red from anger. Just as she is about to reprimand the other party, she realizes that the young man has gone back to flipping through the books after being done with his words, not even sparing her an additional glance. Fine, fine. Continue putting on an act. See how I will reveal your true colors. Luoluo, Shen Bai Ru grits her teeth tightly and stomps her leg. This is the first time that a man has talked to her in such a manner. Fine, aren't you putting on an act of browsing through the books now? Let's see how long you can put up with it. When you are finally unable to continue on, I will expose you and leave you embarrassed. Then, Shen Bai Ru no longer bothers herself with Zhang Xuan and instead, angrily walks back to the manual she had looked for previously and casually takes it out. Then, sitting in a corner in the room, she starts copying it down. Initially, her mood was quite good today and she intended to study for quite a while to boost her knowledge. Yet, never in her dreams would she expect to meet such an infuriating fellow. In the midst of copying down her notes, she sneaks glances periodically towards him. The young man still continues flipping through all of the books with the same speed, seemingly adamant to leave no book unturned. It seems that as long as it is a book of the Compendium Pavilion, he would surely flip through it once. HMPH. Let's see how long you can keep up the act for. After being rebuked by Zhang Xuan, Shen Bai Ru no longer retains her calmness from before and she intends to make things difficult for him. As she copies down her notes slowly, she waits for the moment when the other party is unable to keep up with the act. However, what that leaves her bewildered is that the young man repeats his actions over and over again with the same astonishing speed. From the very first bookshelf, he moves from one row to another, flipping through the books, from afternoon to night, not even sparing a single minute to rest. It has already been 6 to 7 hours but yet the fellow is still persisting on with the same motion. Even Shen Bai Ru finds it inconceivable at this point. If his aim was to attract her attention, she has already clearly told him that she detests such actions, so he should have stopped then. So, how is it possible for him to continue flipping through like this? Not to mention, for such a long period of time. Could this fellow's brain be convulsing or something? Has his cultivation went berserk and he himself became insane? Suddenly, a thought pops up in her head. She has heard that when one's cultivation goes berserk, one would start to do many abnormal actions. Could it be that flipping through books non-stop here be one of this kind of abnormal actions? She is looking at the young man with a bizarre expression as she starts to think that the young man is abnormal when she notices that Zhang Xuan stopping in his actions after flipping through the books in the final row. So much knowledge. After a consecutive 6 to 7 hours of hard work, he has finally imprinted all of the books in Haotian Academy's Teacher Compendium Pavilion in the Library of Heaven's Path in his head. Through the compilation of flaws and strengths from the Library of Heaven's Path towards each individual book, he gains a certain level of understanding towards the cultivation technique, battle technique, pills, equipment forging, formations and such. With Zhao Ya's pure yin body, she should cultivate this manual. However, before that, I have to do some preparations. After imprinting the entire Compendium Pavilion, he finally understands how he should solve the problem with Zhao Ya's physical body. He couldn't resist heaving a breath of relief. He has even found out the loopholes and incomplete portions in the previous 3 dan of his cultivation. As long as he finds some time to recultivate through them, he can correct and perfect them. Goo goo goo. When he is finally finished, he feels an ache in his stomach. After working for such a long period of time, his hunger pangs has already long struck, just that he was oblivious to it then. Shaking his head, he starts to walk towards the exit of the compendium pavilion. However, he had only taken a few steps when he sees Shen Bairu standing before him, looking at him with a cold gaze. To think that this woman would still be here after he has flipped through the books for 6 to 7 hours. Can't be bothered with such a self-important fellow. Zhang Xuan continues walking towards the exit of the compendium pavilion. Stop it right there. When he has just walked through the exit, he hears Elder Mo bellowing at him. At this very instant, Elder Mo's face darkens to the point that it seems like the coalescence of numerous storm clouds, ready to explode at any moment. He has tolerated this young man for very long. At this moment, there is only a thought in his head. Troublemaker, troublemaker, and troublemaker. Elder Mo. Zhang Xuan looks at him with a puzzled expression. HMPH, Teacher Zhang Xuan. Elder Mo's face is cold. With an intentionally harsher tone, he says, "You came to the compendium pavilion not to study, but to intentionally cause trouble. From now on, the compendium pavilion no longer welcomes you. If you step in here once more, I will break your legs." Causing trouble. Elder Mo, where did all these come from? I have been looking through the books seriously. How did I become a troublemaker? Although he had already duplicated an identical compendium pavilion in his head and no longer has to come here, he still feels displeased upon hearing those words. Why is it that when other people are here, you think of them as studying, but when I am here, you think of me as a troublemaker? What kind of logic is this? Aren't you being too unreasonable? If you find any errors, please let us know in the comments below so we can fix it as soon as possible. Also, like and subscribe to our channel to get notified of the latest chapter release.